Twilight Masquerade is finally here, and there are a few decks that everybody's talking about right now. For instance, we've got Dragapult, we've got Dragapult. It certainly seems like everybody's talking about Dragapult, but in reality, there are quite a few decks out there that are really strong when it comes to Twilight Masquerade. However, today's video isn't about any of those. Instead, we've got a homebrew that I want to show you guys and hope you enjoy. So sit back, relax as we talk about Roaring Moon Ogerpon. Alright, let's instantly just jump right into this deck profile. Now, the reason I wanted to build this is because I'm a huge fan of Roaring Moon. If you guys know me, and if you've ever seen my Limitless page, which isn't exactly big, but every single one of my entries has been with a Roaring Moon of some sort. So I'm not ready to give up on Roaring Moon EX, so I found a way to make it work. So let's talk about the deck itself. Here we go. We've got 4 Roaring Moon EX. Now, Roaring Moon EX is a very powerful card because it has Frenzy Gouging, where for 2 dark and for 1 colorless, you can use this attack and knock out your opponent's active Pokemon. The downside here, you do 200 damage to yourself. Not great when you have 230 HP. You also have Calamity Storm, which does 100 base damage, but you could do 120 more damage if you discard a stadium card and play it. It doesn't have to be yours, it could be your opponent's. You do 220 damage, so pretty awesome card there. Now, Ogerpon is the main partner here. We got rid of Moltres. Moltres rotated, and I figured that, you know, this little homie could actually put in work. Now, the Teal Dance is a really good ability where we can attach a grass energy from our hand to an Ogerpon and draw a card. So it is its own energy accelerator. Granted, it's from the hand and not from the discard and requires a different type of energy than what Roaring Moon EX uses, but considering the fact that Roaring Moon does need a colorless, that's where this homie comes in so clutch. So we got ourselves 2 Teal Mask Ogerpon. To round out the Pokemon, we do have ourselves 1 Baby Moon. This guy is just here to, you know, clean up some damage or put some extra damage on. Maybe like usually fighting like the little guys. We got some support Pokemon here in Squawkabilly EX. We've got a Radiant Greninja, and we've got Mew EX. Mew EX I will actually touch up on a little bit on here because we are accelerating with Ogerpon and we have ways to cheat out energy onto our Roaring Moons. We can actually use this little homie right here to attack with genome hacking. It's actually not impossible for us, so that is another thing that you can actually potentially do. Is not only is this a good draw card and a good free trader, but it is a decent attacker in some setups. So that is all the Pokemon. Let's talk about the supporters. Alright guys, so our first supporter to talk about here is Professor Sada's Vitality. This is one of the most important supporter cards in the deck because it allows us to choose 2 of our ancient Pokemon and attach a basic energy card from our discard pile to each of them, and if we attach any energy in this way, we can draw 3 cards. So this allows us to accelerate double, you know, dark energies or a dark and a grass energy, maybe even 2 grass energies if needed. But I think that this is actually one of the best supporters for the deck that you need to play at 4. I know that some old Roaring Moon lists were playing 3, but I think 4 is optimal. Next up, we have Carmine. This is a new supporter out of Twilight Masquerade, where if we're going first, we can actually utilize this supporter, where we can discard our hand and draw 5 cards. This is kind of my Professor's Research replacement. The reason why I'm like getting rid of Research in favor of Carmine simply is because I can use this on my first turn. Yes, I lose out on 2 extra cards by not playing Research, but utilizing this on my first turn when I'm going first and I can't attack anyway could save me big time if it gives me more setup. Next up, I have 2 Boss's Orders here. This is just your generic Gust. And lastly, a little disruption in Iono. Now don't worry, I will show the full list at the end of everything. I just want to kind of talk about each stage of the deck individually. So those are the supporters. Time for items, and I'm not going to talk too heavily on all the item cards because this will be a long video if I do. But firstly, we have Nest Ball at 4. Every Pokemon we are playing is a basic Pokemon, so it makes it very easy to get those Pokemon with Nest Ball. Next up, we have Ultra Ball, great for discarding energy to synergize with our Sada, so we definitely want to have Ultra Ball in the deck. And again, all of the Pokemon that we're playing in our deck are basic Pokemon, so if we do end up prizing any, Heavy Ball really comes in clutch. That is all the Pokemon search. Next up, we have some kind of synergy cards here, with the most important one being the Energy Switch. So Energy Switch allows us to actually switch an energy from one of our Pokemon to another one of our Pokemon. So when we use things like Dark Patch, Sada, or even the Ogerpon, we're able to move that energy from one of those Pokemon to another, allowing us to use attacks very quickly. It allows us to cheat energy on Pokemon that normally wouldn't have that much energy in order to attack. Next up, we have Earthen Vessel. This allows us to find our grass and our dark energy rather quickly. It's also an ancient card that we can throw away very, very easily, which powers up our baby moon. We have one Energy Retrieval. This Energy Retrieval usually is to get grass energy, and usually only that, just so we can use it for extra draws and extra ways to get energy on our Pokemon. One Super Rod, this is so that way if we have to discard energy rather early by going as turbo as we are, if any of them happen to be grass energy or we need some extra energy in deck just to make sure that we are always using our attach for the turn so we can energy switch it later or anything of the sort, this is in the deck so that way we can get those cards back and use Earthen Vessel to get those energies back into our hand. Next up, we do have 4 copies of Dark Patch. This allows us to take a dark energy from our discard pile and attach it to one of our dark Pokemon, which are literally just Roaring Moon, even the baby. Like, it's all Roaring Moon. Alright, so now we have a Pal Pad. This is usually to get things like Boss's Orders and Sada back into the deck. I highly doubt you're going to get, your Carmine back, but sometimes you might actually opt to go get your Iono. So, usually one of those 3. Now this was a reprint in Twilight Masquerade, and I'm very, very happy that it is back because missed energy can be a problem for this deck. So one Enhanced Hammer can make all the difference and can make your loss into a win. And lastly, stall is a thing, but we also don't want to start with the wrong Pokemon, so 2 Switch Cart in the deck make it very viable for us to move around. So that is all the item cards. Let's talk about the last few. Alright, the last few cards to talk about in the deck are very simple. We have 4 Stadium cards here. Remember, Calamity Storm needs us to remove a supporter or a Stadium card for us to do 220 damage. So playing 4 Stadiums kind of makes sense. And they all have very good roles here. For instance, PokéStop allows us to find any of the item cards that we just discussed, which are very, very important to our strategy. We also play 1 Town Store, which allows us to find the, one of our 2 and only 2 item or held cards. What are they called? This allows us to find our tool cards. I don't know why I blanked on tool cards, gosh. So yeah, this allows us to find one of our only 2 tool cards that we are playing in the deck, which we will get into here next. Next up, we have Collapsed Stadium. Collapsed Stadium is here so that way Squawkabilly doesn't become a problem for us later. It can actually change up the prize map for our opponent, so having this Collapsed Stadium makes a ton of sense, and I really, really have been, I love running this. And lastly, we have ourselves to Emergency Jelly. Now, the reason this is here is because of Dragapult, but when we talk about the strategies here soon, you'll understand why. Now, lastly, we'll talk about energy. It is all right here. We are playing 4 Grass Energy, and we are playing 6 Dark Energy. Don't worry about seeing the deck in whole. I will have it up on the screen here in just a second, and you guys can go ahead and look in the description in order to copy and paste it into your Pokemon trading card game live so you could try this deck out yourself. So, let's talk about strategies. So the main purpose of this deck is to make sure that you can use Frenzy Gouging or Calamity Storm as soon as possible to take out big threats and win the game through just sheer force. Now the way that we do that in order to get 3 energy on this homie is a very simple strategy, and it all involves Ogerpons. So we have our Ogerpons here. Now you could do this with 1 or 2, and I can show you how that's possible, but remember, you always get your attach for turn, so let's attach for the turn, right? Now let's say we just need basic energy to attach onto our Ogerpon, right? We need the grass energy, so what we can do here is we can play our Earthen Vessel. Earthen Vessel will allow us to go and get ourselves some grass energy that we can then attach to the Ogerpon. We just put 3 energy out in 1 turn. Now let's go ahead and say with this Earthen Vessel we dumped away an energy, and maybe we have a couple of energy already in the discard already as well. What this opens us up to do is it allows us to set either maybe the Baby Moon, or maybe another full Roaring Moon EX, and from here we are allowed to use our Professor Sada's Vitality. With Professor Sada's Vitality, we are able to accelerate some energy from the discard pile onto our Pokemon. So we can go ahead and accelerate, let's say, a Dark here, and a Dark here. So what is that effectively done? And then we get to draw 3 because it is a Professor Sada. So what is this effectively done? In one turn, we have accelerated 2, 4, 5 energies into play pretty quickly. Now, we also do have the ability to use Dark Patch, and if we do end up finding ourselves a Dark Patch and we have the energy in the discard, we can go ahead and Dark Patch an energy onto another Dark Pokemon. So just like that, like this is a strategy that is very viable. It is possible to do. Now, lastly, you might be questioning yourself, how are we actually attacking with the Roaring Moon? It's only got 2 energy on it. We'll use an Energy Switch to move an energy from the Ogerpon here, and that will allow us to actually use Frenzy Gouging or Calamity Storm pretty quickly. And because we do have this Roaring Moon down here that already has energies on it, once this Roaring Moon is knocked out, all we need to do is move up this Roaring Moon. So what is the cycle from this point? Well, we did just lose a Roaring Moon, so we do have the ability to just set another one down. We'll find another one. We can repeat the process of using things like Dark Patch. This is now just an attach for turn in order for us to actually take a KO. So we would attach for the turn there. We have an Ogerpon that has energy here, but let's say we go ahead and find another one from the deck where we can accelerate 1 here, and then, well, now we're able to draw a card. And lastly, even if we don't have any energy in the deck for this to actually work, and we lost a couple of grass energies, we can always get it back by using the Energy Retrieval, and now we have it in hand. We can attach it to the Ogerpon and draw a card for the turn. If that card happens to be an Energy Switch, well, now we can move that energy over to Roaring Moon EX down here, and yet again, we have a Roaring Moon that is just an attach for turn away from being able to actually take a KO. So that is the cycle here. You're using your Ogerpons in order to accelerate energy and draw cards, which means that you're no longer like super late game dead to like Ionos if you're able to save certain resources in order to make sure that you're getting your grass energies. So you're able to draw cards rather quickly. You're also still not like, you know, you weren't that bad off with Iono plays anyway because you do play Mew, so you could always draw cards off of the Mew EX. But that is the basic strategy here. You're accelerating energy on Ogerpon, and then you're moving that energy to the Roaring Moon, and you're just kind of cycling through all of that to make sure that you're getting energies in the appropriate places. But there is one more reason why I really think the Ogerpon shines in this type of list, and I'll go ahead and show you guys with some physical examples. So, let's talk Charizard. Charizard is obviously probably not going to die just because we got a new set, and Charizard will probably still see a bunch of play. So why is Ogerpon actually good in this sort of scenario? Well, let's go ahead and discuss the fact that it is a really good attacker. For 3 grass energy, you can use Myriad Leaf Shower, and it does 30 damage at base, but then does 30 more damage for each energy attached to both active Pokemon, meaning that the Charizard is going to take 30 damage for each energy attached to it, and the Ogerpon is going to increase its damage output by 30 for each energy attached to it. So that means you can do 380 damage because you'll be, or 360 damage because you'll be doing 180 off of all of the energy here in order to pull it off. But how do we actually get to that position? Well, we're going to want 2 Ogerpon, right? Or we're going to want a Roaring Moon EX in play. And the way that we're going to actually make this work, we can even have 2 Roaring Moon EX, I think, or just a Roaring Moon Baby. It doesn't really matter. Sorry that this is short down here, but I can try to zoom out just a little bit. Hopefully it's still somewhat legible and you guys can understand what's going on here. So, basically the way that this would work, right, is let's say we had a Roaring Moon get knocked out, and we can just go ahead and move up our Ogerpon. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the Teal Dance, and we're going to draw a card. We can use the Teal Dance again here to draw a card. We can either then attach for the turn, and now from here all we need is an Energy Switch. That's it. That's how you power it up. But there are other ways that we can actually go about this route. So let's say we go ahead and Teal Dance, we attach for the turn, and then we can use our Sada to actually accelerate a grass energy here, and then Energy Switch the energy there. Yes, it does take an energy away from a Roaring Moon EX, but let's be honest, this is a much nicer knockout where you can always reset this up to get another 2-prize KO on the next turn because you can build it up and just knock out whatever comes up next. So it's actually a much safer option to do this. Yes, your Ogerpon will get knocked out by the next Charizard, but considering the fact that it's actually really easy to just bring this homie up. Now we are down 3 grass energy here, right? There's 3 grass energy here. Let's go ahead and use Energy Retrieval. Get 2 back. So 2 grass energy back. We will Teal Dance, draw a card, attach for turn, and then we are able to use the same combo. We'll Sada, and then Energy Switch. And you can actually, and the important thing to do here as well is in this position, if it's like this is your 4th prize or something like that, like you're getting prizes 3 and 4 off of this, the main thing you're going to want to do in this position is you're going to get to this point here where you attach return and you Teal Dance. You're going to Sada, Energy, you're going to go ahead and Energy Switch. Now you have a knockout here, right? And you can start building up the Roaring Moon down here with Dark Patch. You've already attached for turn, so you're just a Sada away at that point. So it's, or even just an attached return, so you can kind of set yourself up for success right here. Now, the main problem in this position will be if your opponent kind of like, if you knock out this guy and your opponent literally brings up Charizard, the Radiant Zard will just get a knockout on Ogerpon. Well, that is where all of your Gust kind of comes in. Like, I say all your Gust, but you're really only playing 2 copies, right? You're playing Boss's Orders, which essentially kind of becomes 4 copies with the Pal Pad. But you can always just bring up this homie, attach for turn, and then you can boss out something like their Pidgeot EX, and Pidgeot EX will just get knocked out by Frenzy Gouging. So that is kind of like the routing on why I think Ogerpon is a lot stronger than Moltres V, because it has more versatility in certain matchups, and I really, really enjoy that about it. And drawing cards off of the Teal Dance isn't that bad either. So that is why I think the Teal Dance Ogerpon is very powerful. But there is one more card that we need to talk about when it comes to why Ogerpon is good. So while Zard may or may not see play, one card that we can all agree will is Iron Hands EX. And Roaring Moon kind of has a love-hate relationship with this certain 2-prizer, simply because you can knock it out using Frenzy Gouging, and then this homie goes away and he's, you know, done for. But then if you're playing against someone that's easily able to build up another one of these, they bring it out, and now they just go ahead and amp you for 3 prizes, and you kind of have to bring him out and then do the same thing over again. And this was even the same thing that would happen in the matchup previously, like where we had Moltres V instead. It wasn't very easy to get around 230 HP Behemoth Pokemon like this. However, that is another reason why I love the Ogerpon. So take Roaring Moon away, and just like the last routing we talked about, Teal Dance, attach for turn, you can Sada an energy onto your Roaring Moon, which would be a grass, right? And then you go ahead and Energy Switch right here. And now, all of a sudden, this isn't that scary anymore, because it can't knock out Ogerpon. Even if they bring up another Iron Hands, it's not knocking out my Ogerpon, unless it's like, you know, Future Box. If it's Future Box and they have Iron Crowns, then yeah. I mean, we would just probably try and boss and then use Calamity Storm with Roaring Moon anyway. But in this position, let's say that they can, you know, it's not that. So what do? We have this here, we have Myriad Leaf Shower. So we're doing 30, 60, 90, right? 120, 150, 180, 210, and then it does 30 base, 240 damage to a 230 HP Pokemon. This homie's knocked out. So when our opponent does bring out another one, they can't knock out our Ogerpon, which was the problem that Roaring Moon had. It would have to use Frenzy Gouging to get a knockout, and then they would come up and they would take 3 prizes, and then you'd rinse and repeat, and they would win. But with the Teal Mask Ogerpon, you can just swing 240 damage, no problem, on this Iron Hands. And if you do need that extra consistency boost, don't forget, I've only been showing you 1 Ogerpon. You play 2 Ogerpon in this list, where you can accelerate here, and then, you know, energy switch the energy that you accelerate here onto here. But if you have like 2 ancient Pokemon in play, right? Let's get rid of this guy. If you have 2 ancient Pokemon in play, you could always accelerate using Sada onto, whoop, that's not Sada. Using Sada onto these 2, that's 2 energy here. And then you can attach return, accelerate with a energy switch onto this homie. So you can find ways to actually bring this up, just in case this little guy is like under, like if it's only got 3 prizes, or 3 energy on it, you can go ahead and find ways to add even more energy onto the Teal Mask Ogerpon, which is super, super important to get knockouts that might make or break the matchup. So that is one of the biggest reasons why I think that the Teal Mask Ogerpon is so important. Now, I'm sorry that there's no actual physical gameplay of this because PTCGL is having issues from the update, but once that is settled, I will be getting some gameplay in, and I will kind of like either let you guys know on Twitter that I'm going to film that and upload that kind of as its own standalone thing, but I'm not sure yet because we'll see how long it takes PTCGL to actually fix itself. So here's another matchup where, you know, things can get a little tricky because you do damage yourself and you kind of like put yourself in a weird position where you can always be knocked out by the Dragapult, right? Because if you're doing Frenzy Gouging, you're doing knockout, so you would knock this out. Your opponent would need another Dragapult to bring up. And then in this position, what they could end up doing here is they can just hit you with a boss's orders. So they would go, hey, I'm going to boss out that beautiful Mew EX you have chilling on the bench, and I'm going to bring it up into the active. And then I'm going to Phantom Dive to knock out your Mew EX, and then I'm going to put 30 damage on your Roaring Moon that is already damaged for 4 prizes. And, oh, is that another Roaring Moon you have on the bench? I'll go ahead and put 30 there, so that way you can't use Frenzy Gouging to knock out my Dragapult again. That's a pretty bad situation to be in, right? Like, I think we can all agree that that is not a fun situation to be in. So in this matchup, you want to be sparing, right? You don't want to bench them you early, and you certainly don't want to put down multiple Roaring Moons too quickly, because if you do, they'll take advantage of the fact that you have no way to actually boost your HP up, because you're not playing the Ancient Capsule. What you do have is Emergency Jelly. And what Emergency Jelly will do is, in this situation, is you will go ahead and put down your Roaring Moon, give it the Emergency Jelly, and then let's say you go for the knockout. Ignore that there's no prizes or energies, pretend there's energies. You get the knockout. Now, what happens? Well, normally you would have 200 damage on yourself, but you're gonna heal 120, which means that you only have 80 damage on yourself. So I don't have any Gear Heart System dice. Alright, so 80 damage, right? So that's because you would normally do 200 and then you subtract 120 because Emergency Jelly, we were at 30 HP, so we heal 120. This will go into our discard. And now what our opponent has to do is they would bring up another Dragapult and they would go, okay, well, now I can't exactly do what I wanted to do. You don't have another Dragapult in play, and you do have a Mew EX on the bench, but even if I boss that out, I can get a knockout on the Mew, but I can't knock out the Roaring Moon. That's kind of a sticky situation to be in, because now I'm not getting 4 prizes. Again, I could just, I don't know, attack here and then put 60 on the Mew EX, and it's only 3 turns away from actually being KO'd, but that does give me the opportunity to bring this up, put down another Roaring Moon, build that up, bring him up, attack with the Jelly, get a KO there, and then they're right back in the same position all over again. The only difference is I'm kind of like more in the lead because in this position, this still only has 60 HP on it. And if I have another Roaring Moon in play, it could be used as bait for my opponent to want to spread damage counters onto this Roaring Moon and kind of leave my low HP support Pokemon alone. And if it does get to the position where it does get kind of bad, I could always Collapsed Stadium away the one Pokemon that's closest to getting knocked out. So we have ways around it, but that is why the Emergency Jelly is so important in this list. I think we can all agree that Dragapult is going to be a pretty prevalent card, and that is kind of our answer to it. Now, we could play something like Mimikyu if we wanted to, but at the end of the day, I don't exactly think that is a good idea because, well, where would we have room for that? I do apologize that there's no actual gameplay of this deck because PTCGL is being a little crazy right now due to the new update because Twilight Masquerade is out today and it came out on live yesterday on the Thursday for the actual, live service. So like everyone was on it and cards are not functioning correctly. And I didn't want to spend hours on hours on hours trying to get footage just for the game to keep crashing or just not working and it become not a very enjoyable experience for you guys. But hopefully my explanation on why this Roaring Moon EX list is kind of crazy will suffice until we can get gameplay in the future. But let me know in the comments what you guys think about this deck. Don't forget that you can check out the description to see this deck's full 60, so you can copy and paste it into your PTCGL and give it a shot for yourself. Let me know what you like about it. Let me know what you would change about it, or what you have changed, and what it's done for you. So that is going to be the video for today. I truly appreciate you guys watching. Thank you for your support and your love. All of you who are subscribed to the Vulcan Turtle family, thank you so much for all of the support. If you are not subscribed, check out the little button down there. You should hit that subscribe button, because if you're not, you know, you'll see when I post, when we do, you know, gameplay video of this, but also whenever we cook up the next cool deck, you'll be able to see it in your notifications if you hit the bell. So thank you guys for watching. I truly appreciate it. Until next time, stay safe, be kind, and I love ya!